Hey everyone, thank you so much for checking out another interview video with Lantern Series. This time I actually have country star David Nail here with me. So we're super excited to have you, David, and thank you for being one of the few parts of my fall lineup that still is going to come down here to Woodstock.
Well, we're excited. Obviously, it's a very sensitive issue, and you kind of have people on both sides of it. And I think that, obviously, this is what we do for a living, and it's what I love to do. More than anything, I think this has kind of reminded me of just how much, when you start doing it for work, there are times where it does kind of sort of feel like work. You get kind of caught up into the traveling but it's something that I've certainly never taken for granted. And I think that this has only reminded me of just how blessed we've been to be able to do this. And, I think that as far as, playing now, we're just, obviously it's a different dynamic and you have to, take some cautions that, otherwise in the past that I've never had to. But, I think that it's definitely, I hope, going to make us better entertainers. And just the fact that, it's kind of been taken from us for so long now. And I think definitely we'll be more excited and not that we needed to, but I think we'll take more pride in the craft and doing what we love to do.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here, and I'm excited that you feel comfortable enough. And our audience, we've had a couple of concerts already, and we got those safety procedures set. So if you're watching this and don't have your tickets yet, I don't know what you're doing getting them now. We're having everyone spaced out. We're checking temperatures on their way in. We're requesting masks until you sit down at your table. But once you're there, you're at least 8 feet apart from somebody else. So you're good to demask. And we're outside, which a lot of other venues, even in our state, don't have the chance to be. So we're thankful that we have an outdoor venue that we can spread out safely and have this great concert. I'm really excited too, because I've been a fan of yours actually for years now. I didn't realize how long you'd been in the music scene until I was doing some research before this interview and thought, man, Red Light was about 10 years ago, something close to that, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I always kind of have, I feel like that, those moments in my career, I always reference via kind of my marriage, what we were going through at home personally and stuff. And Red Light, when it first came out, my wife and I weren't even married yet. So it's over 10 years ago because we just celebrated 11 years. But I can remember that song just kind of being released and very slowly moving up the chart and just super stressed. I was getting ready to get married, and I can remember having conversation after conversation with my wife, just wondering, if she was still confident and walking down the aisle and signing that contract to spend the rest of our lives together when it was such a, I guess, it wasn't a very secure time in either of our lives. And so I guess in reality, it was probably the worst time in the world to get married. But I guess that's what you do when you're in love. You don't always think with the smartest part of your brain. But yeah, it was crazy because that song I had already made my record and released a song that wasn't very successful at all. And so I was in some ways sort of forced to go back into the studio, and Red Light was one of the songs that I had recorded. And I was super passionate about it. I wanted to not like it, because I felt like I had made this great record and I wanted to stand pat on that and take pride in what I'd done. But when I heard the song, I knew immediately. I was like, "Dadgummit, man, this is a good song, man. I'm definitely gonna have to go record this." And I tell people all the time, it wasn't a number one song, but I've had two of those, and Red Light's one of those songs from the moment you start playing that intro, people gravitate towards it and people recognize it, and it's every bit as popular as any song that I have in the set.
Well, and that's something else to note too, is you have a lot of popular songs. I think you have more top one hits than anyone else we've had on our stage, which is super exciting for our audience. How how do you navigate that? Just having songs that some of them just soar all the way to the top, and some of them don't quite hit those expectations you want.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say I've had, two or three songs where I had the most confidence in the world. I thought, oh man, this is gonna be song of the year. This is, once in a lifetime song that didn't do what even remotely what we thought that it would have done. And then, maybe some other songs that we loved and obviously enough to record, and we felt strongly enough to release them as a singles, but they performed maybe better than we had expected. So I think you just never know. I always tell people, our success is in reality is kind of dependent on, a million people digging what you do. But it's hard to read all those minds. And you think in your heart, you've got something that's really strong, and then you put it out there, and there's a lot of variables involved. Since we've started doing these Thursday night concerts, and several weeks ago we started doing some signed lyric sheets for people. And the one thing that's taught me is, what you think your most popular songs and what other your fans think are the best songs are entirely different things. I thought, I'd just be doing Red Lights and Whatever She's Got and the big hits we've had. But there's 3 or 4 album cuts that are right behind those as far as requests to do the lyrics. And so that's been nice because you hear those occasionally, especially through social media. People will ask you about different songs, and it always kind of perks your interest, and it's very flattering, obviously. But at the same time, uh, those hits are undeniable. As far as I remember Luke Bryan telling me one time when Whatever She's Got was released, he said, man, he goes, you got a hit song. And I remember thinking, well, I've had a few prior to this. And he goes, no, he goes, there's a difference between a hit song and a hit song. And I was like, okay. And about 5 or 6 weeks later, I can remember running into him and just saying, man, dude, you weren't lying. Just this, Whatever She's Got was probably top 30, but there was just a completely different dynamic when we played that live. And so, I'm very glad that we got to experience that difference between quote unquote hit songs, even though, certain songs may have performed on the radio better. You may have other songs that didn't, but for whatever reason, they translated with the audience and people react to those better.
Yeah. Something that I've always admired about you listening to country music growing up is, and you would come on, is your insane range. I mean, just the amount of notes you can hit and just how easy you can hit them. At what point did you realize that, maybe I want to sing and maybe I'm good at this? Like, when in your life did that happen?
Oh man, I don't know that I necessarily feel like that confident about it now. If you're around me or you saw me before a show, you'd be like, golly, man, you're a wreck. You're an anxious wreck. Because I get so much anxiety before a show. But I was told a long time ago that was a good thing, because it showed that it mattered to me, and I still cared about performing. But I started singing as a young kid, and then I'd say, in junior high, started performing in a couple of talent shows. But things got different, probably about 16, 17 years old. And, I was fortunate enough to have a really strong choir director who encouraged me. And you just, I think, at that age, you kind of start to recognize that singing may come to you a little easier than others. I'm married to one of the worst singers I've ever heard in my life. So that's taught me that not everybody is just blessed with the ability, but I think that, God-given abilities like that, my favorite movie of all time is Good Will Hunting. And, in that movie, he stresses several times about, he didn't ask for that ability to be such a math wizard. And he didn't understand why it was so hard for everybody else. It was like riding a bike to him. And that's something that I've always told people, I don't know what it is that transpires when I go on stage. And, most of the time I got my eyes closed. I just, I try to find songs and write songs that mean something to me. And a lot of them are so important that when I sing them, it just allows me to tap into a place that I think people kind of, not kind of, I think they can tell that, hey man, this means something to him. He's feeling this. And there's just a difference in the sound of his voice, or different lines. And, I've never understood the formula or whatever that happens, or why people are drawn to it, or why people have. I was actually going for a long walk a couple of days ago, and just started kind of reflecting on different things, and I just kind of got in one of those, like, what in the hell, gave me the confidence that I could move to Nashville and be a singer, and just how crazy the ride has been, and how things have just happened. So, there's really no other way to say it than it's a God thing, and that it's by no means been easy, but just the fact of how I got my break, so to speak, and when it seemed like whenever kind of the cards were against me, and you could kind of go two different ways. You could kind of give up, or you could kind of I'm trying to keep this PG, or you can kind of bury down the hatchet and go for it. And it just seemed like every time I would lean towards maybe walking away, the good Lord would kind of, slap me over the head, and the door would open. And then, I've always said, when doors open, it's up for you to perform. And I think, when I was probably 16, 17 years old, and just that I've never done drugs, but it has to be similar to a drug, like just that rush, that adrenaline rush of performing, and the applause, and feeling like that you've entertained someone, so to speak. And at this level, it's so much more different than a 17-year-old singing cover songs at a talent show. You have people come up to you and talk to you about your songs and how they affected them, or how they moved them, or helped them through a tough time. And it's just I always say God didn't really bless me with any other talents, and I'm very thankful that I get to do this, because I can't think of, short of a doctor, saving somebody's life, I can't think of another, or a teacher, or somebody, I can't think of another job where you get that rewarding experience of affecting someone so often. And so, again, I think it all comes back to the songs. But I was blessed to start early. My father was a band director, so I've just kind of always been involved in music. And again, at the end of the day, I just close my eyes and sing and pray that the notes come out. And I can't sing as high as I probably could 10 years ago, but I sure try as hard. I sure try as hard to do it.
Something that we're really excited for too, bringing you in when we were, trying to get this whole deal situated, is that you are bringing an acoustic set for us, which we found with our audience. They love the idea of having something that, if they were going to Atlanta to see you, it'd probably be the full band, and it'd be a big old crowd. But our venue, we can get a little more intimate with that. And tell us a little bit about your acoustic set and what people can expect.
Well, it's funny, when we started out, we traveled a lot to radio stations, and that's kind of how we initially started playing, was that setup, a percussionist, a keyboard player. A lot of my songs involve piano, so I have to kind of always have a piano there, and then me on acoustic guitar. And you did it so much that you'd find yourself going, geez, man, I just can't wait till we can play full band. I can't wait till we can play full band and have this big, loud, broad sound. And then you play, 150 of those shows a year for a few years, and you start thinking, God, man, I'd love to just go back and kind of have that intimate feel of those acoustic sets. And, the big reason why I enjoy them, and I will say this in I'll tell the crowd this when we play is the VH1 Storytellers. I grew up when that show was huge, and I think they would have like a new one like every Sunday or something. And I just loved the feel of it. I loved the vibe of it. I loved how the people would tell stories about the songs and introduce the songs, and they would sound a little different than maybe the record. And so I always treat these shows, I kind of pretend like I'm on that show. And, I don't tell stories about every song, but the songs that I feel like have significant stories or stories that really, impacted me in a big way. I found that, as you can probably already tell, I can get a little long-winded. And every time I tell the crowd, hey, I'm going to shut up, or I won't tell a story about this because I've been talking too much. After the show, people will be like, don't shut up talking, about not talking. We want you to tell, us as much as you can about the songs or why you recorded them or what you were thinking. But I think sometimes you can kind of feel like you're rambling. And I know when I've been to shows before, I'll look at my wife, I'll be like, oh man, he's talking too much or she's talking too much. So I kind of always had that in the back of my mind, but it's just a different dynamic, even our full band shows, I tell people, you're not going to see me jumping off speakers, and it's not some super rambunctious thing. It's a different type of energy for sure. But the acoustic sets, it's just, I don't want to say it's more casual. It's just, I think that there's just a more of a comfort feeling inside because, I'll be sitting on a stool and I'll play, we'll banter back and forth with the band and tell jokes. I'll make fun of guys in the band and they'll bark back at me. And it's just, I think it's just a really unique dynamic. And people, people that have seen both, there's a lot of people that will come up to me and say, you just look so much more comfortable in that setting, or I enjoyed that so much more because you just really kind of let your guard down, and for whatever reason, you just seemed more at ease. And I think it probably, at the end of the day, goes back to all those, times we kind of had that set up in the beginning, and kind of when you thought that was the only kind of show you were ever going to do is those little acoustic sets. And I guess it's that classic case of things kind of come full circle, and you kind of learn, how good you had it when you had it. And it's just, it's different, but by no means do I feel like, if anything, I feel like the songs kind of have the ability to come through a little bit more powerful because, there's not all the tricks and technology to kind of wash things out and maybe complicate the getting the lyric over. Or I will say though, I'll be even more nervous because again, there's nothing to hide behind. So you'll hear all my mistakes, every one of them, because I can't just hide off the mic and pray that there's electric guitar solo to cover it up. So they'll definitely notice when I make a mistake for sure.
Well, it's also
hopefully there's not many.
Well, yeah, no.
I cross my fingers.
It might help you a little bit. We did have an artist who forgot some of her lyrics earlier in a couple weeks ago and just had fun with our audience, and they had a fun time too. So no real stressors there. As long as you're having fun, they'll have fun. And like I said, we're excited to have you. I'm going to change courses a little bit with my questioning just because, one, I see you wearing the Dodgers hat on your head, and I've heard you really like baseball.
I am a huge baseball fan. I have to say, like, this wasn't like a super conscious decision. It just happened to be one of the ones that was at the front of the line in the hat bin. But I do love baseball. I grew up really with only two true passions, and that's sports and music, and never really have taken much of an interest in anything else. And my father was that way, and that's just, I was kind of raised that Either we were in the band room, either we were listening to music, or we were watching sports on television. And I am a huge baseball fan, very thankful. It is a little odd watching it right now. I told my wife the other day, I said, man, 3 different times a day I've caught myself looking at the TV screen and going, oh, they must be in a rain delay because there's no crowd. And then I have to remind myself, oh yeah, they don't have crowds. So
What do you think
it
of
is.
the cardboard cutouts of fans sitting in the audience?
I tell you, man, it's pretty smart if you think about the fact that they're pumping in a lot of this crowd noise.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that if you only allow yourself to kind of play alongside like your peripheral, I always think it's funny when people that are like Miami Marlins fans or the players like Oakland and stuff, these teams that never draw real well, and they're like, man, I'm used to this. I'm used to playing to nobody. Nothing feels different. But I'm sure, places like St. Louis, which is, where I grew up going, and the Dodger Stadium, places that, are used to having 35, 40,000. I'm sure it definitely is a difference. Just, I've played in some of these celebrity softball games in these big stadiums, and, obviously it's for fun and you're a lot less pressure on you. But, man, it's tough just to keep, you hear people yelling at you, just your visual experience of trying to focus on this little white baseball or whatever. It definitely gave me a whole new level of appreciation for the skill that it takes to just really focus and block that out. So I think a lot of these golfers, I think they're like, God, man, this is easy. I don't have to worry about somebody chirping me as I walk down, after I shank some shot. So I think that, and I've even heard some of the golfers say that it is a lot easier because, just your eye, what you're viewing, there's not that gallery of fans, and you don't, as far as like the other sports, you don't have to worry about that one obnoxious fan that's just chirping you for an entire 9 innings, telling you how terrible you are and talking about your family and how many pimples you got on your face. And you can just kind of go out there and relax and play and do your job. Now on my end, that would be, I've played for some half empty, 3/4 empty rooms, and it's not a fun experience. I've tried every trick of the book of trying to convince myself to, hey man, do your best, or you got to give them the best performance. But it's tough. But at the end of the day, I think you got to kind of fall back on that initial love of what you did, and hopefully that gets you through.
Speaking a little bit of those softball tournaments, I did read you hit a home run in one of them. What was that like?
Well, I'm gonna have to brag on myself. I've hit a few home runs in them.
Okay.
I hit one the first year in Anaheim, and then I hit 2 the third time I did it in Minnesota. And then the coolest part about Minnesota was every year I've done it, they'll have to cut it short for television, but then they've got to kill some time before the fireworks. And so they'll, in essence, like the television part of the game is done, but then they'll pick like a quote unquote celebrity, and then like one of the legends, the old timer guys, and they'll have like a home run derby. And the second year or the third year I did it, for whatever reason, none of the pros would do it. And so me and Nelly ended up taking on this actor and Jim Tomei, who is a Hall of Famer now. And so it's like 2 musicians against this ex-pro player, and we beat them only because Jim Tomei kept pulling them foul, but he was hitting them about 400 feet. So we really technically shouldn't have won. If he would have just hit a couple fair, we'd have gotten smoked. But I'll never forget, man. I got the MVP of the game. Well, we got co-MVPs with Nelly, and there was only one trophy, and so I feel like Nelly's had a much bigger career. I should hand him the trophy, and he goes, "Nah, man, I got lots of those." And I was like, "All right, I'll take it then."
No, that's a lot of fun and exciting, and something that maybe a lot of fans don't know or do know about you. But that's a really cool thing. Have you gotten a chance to play in any more? Do you think that's something you're gonna want to do, or?
The last softball game I played, my wife arranged for my 40th birthday, and I actually hit a couple home runs in that one too. Got lucky. It took me a while. Thankfully, we had 4 or 5 at bats. Softball's a tricky thing. I mean, I grew up playing baseball my entire life, but softball's a whole nother animal. And you kind of have to like figure it out. You know, it takes you. I'll never forget the first time I played softball. I played in college, and all these people were talking about, "Hey, man, this guy played at junior college baseball. He's really good." And I struck out twice, and I was like so humiliated that I swore I'd never play softball again. So like, imagine that memory walking up to the plate, in a full stadium in Anaheim, California. And all I could think about was, I don't care where I hit it. I just need to make contact. And I did, and then ended up hitting a home run. But it was, I was a nervous wreck then. I guess more or less the moral of this interview is I'm just nervous all the time, I guess.
Well, that's also good for people to hear, because once again, like, you've had number 1 hits, you tour for, a good chunk of your, like, that's what you do as a career. And for people to hear that, yeah, no, I still get nervous when I'm doing what I do every day. Like, that's one, good to know, like you said, because that means you care, but also good to know because, we have a theater portion to our organization too. And it's a lot of volunteers who show up, and it's good for them to hear that, yeah, it's okay to be nervous every single night you're going up there and performing.
Yeah, I got the privilege of getting to know Tony La Russa, who's a Hall of Fame manager in the big leagues, and I remember he came to see us. He lives outside of Oakland, and he came to see us when we were opening up for Lady Antebellum, and for whatever reason, prior to that show, I'd gotten this like habit of having like athletes sign my guitar. Most people in Nashville would have like artists or their heroes in music to sign guitars, and I was like, I won't do that. I'll do something different. I'll do athletes. And so I had this pretty big open spot that I was saving for him. And I told him, I said, hey, I want you to put some sort of, motivational quote on there. And we had never talked about this prior to that. And he just wrote, if you're not nervous, you're not ready. And I remember looking at that going, golly, I'm the most ready person in the history of the world. But I think of that all the time. And I remember asking him, like, what in the world do you mean by that? And he goes, man, I want nervous ball players. He goes, because that means it means something to them. That means that they're going up there and it matters, and they've got 100% of their focus and determination to try to succeed in that moment. And I just remember thinking, golly, that's genius, but I don't know that I can necessarily tell myself that, but I'm going to try. But I've told so many people that, like, people have asked me for advice or whatever. And I always reference that moment. And, and I will say, for whatever reason over the course of my career, whether it's doing the national anthem or it's doing, different things, whatever I thought at that point was the biggest moment in my career. I think you usually do, for whatever reason, perform your best when you kind of have that much anxiety. And I don't know if it's just because you've prayed so much about it and the good Lord's carrying you through it, or you do have that 100% focus, and it kind of carries you through those nerves. But it is kind of odd how you would think those moments you would kind of collapse and the fear would get the best of you. But I think, and for whatever reason, it just kind of works the opposite way.
Well, I just want to thank you. I think we're about at time, but I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this, for still want to come down here and perform in a safe environment. And we're more than excited to have you. August 29th, the acoustic set of David Nail. Thank you so much.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time, and we look forward to it. And like I said, we're going to do the best of our abilities, and it may be a little different for everybody involved, but I think, given the circumstances, I think everybody will have a good time. I know we definitely will.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.